Next question. Name the scientist who first used a glass prism to obtain the spectrum of sunlight. So we have the option C.V. Raman, Lord Rayleigh, Isaac Newton, S. Chandrasekhar. So what is the answer? Yes, the answer is Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton first used a glass prism to obtain the spectrum of sunlight. Okay. So let's see details. So this is a glass prism. When we are passing a light or sunlight through it, what happens is it will undergo refraction at this boundary. Then when it comes out also, it will undergo refraction, and this light splits into different colors. That phenomenon is known as dispersion. That phenomenon is known as dispersion. Splitting of light into its component colors. Splitting of light into its component colors, that is known as dispersion. So if white light is passed through a glass prism, it will undergo dispersion. It splits into different colors. Okay, now what are the colors? Vibgyor. We'll be getting 7 colors. Vibgyor, that is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. So this band of colors is known as spectrum of light. This band of colors is known as spectrum of light. It was discovered by Isaac Newton, and he told that light is made up of 7 colors. Light is made up of 7 colors. Now, the violet color will be bending most. Violet color, which is having less wavelength, that is bending most. Red color, which is having more wavelength, that bends least. So it is present in this outrage. Okay. So that is dispersion. So here the answer is, we have already marked, it is Isaac Newton. Okay. So let's see the next question. The cost of energy to operate an industrial refrigerator that consumes 5 kilowatt power working 10 hours per day for 30 days will be, given that the charge per kilowatt hour of energy is equal to 4. Options 600, 6,000, 1,200, 1,500. So we know here we have to find the cost of energy. So we have to first find the energy. So they have given power is 5 kilowatt and hours is 10 hours per day for 30 days. So total hours or total time is 10 into 30. 10 hours into 30. So that is 300 hours. Okay. So we have to find this in kilowatt hour, because here for kilowatt hour they are saying the amount is 4 rupees. Isn't it? So energy is equal to how much kilowatt? 5 kilowatt into hours is 300 hours. 10 into 30, 300 hours, isn't it? So it is 1500 kilowatt hour. So 1500 kilowatt hour is the energy, and we have to find the cost, isn't it? So cost for 1 kilowatt hour is 4. So for 1500 kilowatt hour, cost is equal to 1500 into 4. So that is 6,000. So the cost is 6,000 rupees. Okay. So why I'm using this equation, why I'm multiplying power into time here? Kilowatt, that is power, no? 5 kilowatt is power. Then time, that is 300 hours. Why I'm multiplying power into time? We know that work is equal to, work by time is equal to power. So work is equal to power into time. So work is nothing but here in the form of energy, heat energy. So energy, we can write it as power into time. Now power already given in kilowatt, so no need to convert that to kilowatt. It is already in kilowatt into time, that is 300. So cannot take 10 hours because every day 10 hours, so 30 days it is 300. So 5 into 300, which is 1500 kilowatt hour. That is the energy, and for each kilowatt hour it is 4. So it is 1500 into 4, 6,000 rupees. Okay. Next question. Which one of the following statements regarding magnetic field is not correct? Let's see the statements. Magnetic field is a quantity, that is direction and magnitude. Magnetic field lines are closed curves. Magnetic field lines are open curves. No two magnetic field lines are found to cross each other. Okay, so read the statements very clearly and understand, and then mark the correct option. So let's see some properties of magnetic field before answering this question. Obviously, magnetic field is a vector quantity. Magnetic field is a vector quantity. So that means what? It has both direction and magnitude. It has both direction and magnitude. That is correct statement. Now, suppose we have a magnet south, north, there will be magnetic field lines around that. There will be magnetic field lines around that, and these magnetic field lines will be closed curves. Magnetic field lines will be closed curves. Magnetic field lines will be closed curves. It will not be open curves. So magnetic field lines will be closed curves. That is one point. So they are not open curves, they are closed curves. Then another thing, these magnetic field lines never cross each other. The magnetic field lines never cross each other. That means what? They will never cross each other. If they cross each other, what is the meaning? There will be two directions at that point. So that is wrong. So magnetic field lines never cross each other. That is also a correct statement, isn't it? So magnetic field lines never cross each other. Now we'll come back to our question. So which of the following statement is not correct? Magnetic field is a quantity that has direction and magnitude. That is a correct statement. Magnetic field lines are closed curves. That is a correct statement. Magnetic field lines are open curves. That's a wrong statement. No two magnetic field lines cross each other. So that is also correct statement. So the incorrect statement or not correct statement is option C. Option C. Next question. In an incandescent electric bulb, the filament of bulb is made up of which metal? Aluminum, copper, tungsten, silver. In an incandescent electric bulb, the filament of bulb is made up of which metal? Aluminum, copper, tungsten, silver. Which is the answer? The answer is tungsten. Okay. So what are the properties of tungsten that helps in using this metal as the filament of bulb? That is what we are going to see. So in a bulb, we have a filament. We have a filament inside that, and that filament is made up of tungsten. Okay, first of all, tungsten is a good conductor. Tungsten is a good conductor. Tungsten is a good conductor. Then the tungsten is having very high melting point. So it will not melt faster. It is having very high melting point. So it will not melt faster. It can withstand large hotness or very high hotness. It will not melt easily. Now, tungsten is having a large heating effect. Large heating effect. It will have a large heating effect, and due to this large heating effect, light is being produced in the incandescent lamp. Okay, high heating effect that helps in emitting light, helps in emitting light. Okay, so that makes tungsten a very good metal for being used as the filament of the bulb. So what are the properties? Properties is tungsten is a very good conductor. It is having a very high melting point. It has ability to get hot, red hot, and release and give out light. Okay. So other than this one, additional information in the electric bulbs, we fill the electric bulbs or the space in the electric bulb with inert gases to withstand or to increase the life of the filament. To increase the life of the filament, the bulb is being filled with inert gases. Okay. So the answer is option C. Next question. Two equal resistors are connected in parallel and a battery of 12 volt is connected parallel and a battery of 12 volt is connected across this combination. A DC current of 100 milliampere flows through the circuit as shown below. You have to find the value of R. They have given the options 120 ohm, 240 ohm, 60 ohm, 100 ohm. Okay. So let's do it. See here, two resistors are connected in parallel. So if two resistors are connected in parallel, if they are equal resistors and there are two resistors, what will be the effective resistance? That will be R by 2. So if n equal resistors are connected in parallel, then their equivalent resistance, total resistance will be R by n. If equal resistors are connected in parallel, if there are n equal resistors, if they are connected in parallel, then the total resistance will be R by 2. Total resistance will be R by 2. So in this case, we can take this as R by 2. The effective value, total value of this is R by 2 because two equal connected in parallel. If there are three equal connected in parallel, it will be R by 3. If there are four, it will be R by 4. So if equal resistors are connected in parallel, total resistance will be R by N, where N is number of resistors. So here it is R by 2. Okay. Now we have current they have given, voltage they have given. So we know that V is equal to IR, Ohm's law. So 12 is equal to I is 100 milliampere. So milliampere means into 10 raised to minus 3. To convert that into amperes, into R becomes R by 2. Isn't it? So 12 is equal to 100 raised to minus 1 into R by 2. So if we take 2 to this side, 24 is equal to 10 raised to minus 1 into R. R is equal to 240. R is equal to 240 ohm. R is equal to 240 ohm. That is very easy question. Equation was V is equal to IR, Ohm's law. The equation of Ohm's law. Now resistors when connected in parallel, equal resistors are connected means you have to just divide by how many resistors are there. So effective resistor or total resistance here is R by 2. So we are just putting I and V in that. We'll get the value of R as 240. Next question. So here the option was option B, 240. Okay. Next question. Which one of the following is not a unit of energy? Not a unit of energy. So which is the answer? Not a unit of energy. See first option, joule. Joule is obviously unit of energy. Watt hour. We have studied kilowatt hour, that is a unit of energy. So watt hour is also unit of energy. Newton meter. So Newton is for force, meter is for distance, F into S. So work is F dot S, isn't it? Work is having unit joule. Okay, so that can be a unit of energy where work and energy are more or less same. Energy is nothing but capacity to do work. Next is kilogram meter per second square. Kilogram, that is mass, isn't it? So mass, meter, that is distance, by time square. So there is nothing to do with this equation for energy, isn't it? So this cannot be the unit of energy. This fourth option, that cannot be the unit of energy. So here, joule is a unit of energy, whatever is a unit of energy, Newton meter is a unit of energy, which is not. That is option D. Option D, kilogram meter per second square is not a unit of energy. So the answer is option D. Next question we'll see. Let's see the next question. Two planets orbit the sun in circular orbits. Their radius of orbit as r1 equal to r and r2 equal to 4r. Ratio of their time periods is. Ratio of their time periods is. Okay, so this is according to Kepler's laws. This question is according to Kepler's laws. Please try. You know the Kepler's laws? So here it is, they're saying about time period. So you can note down the Kepler's law of periods. Kepler's law of periods tells that time period, okay, square of the time period is proportional to, directly proportional to cube of the semi-major axis, that is r cube. So planets revolving in the elliptical orbit, isn't it? So that's why they are using the term semi-major axis. So semi-major axis means this part, the radius part, isn't it? So Kepler's law states that square of the time period is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of r cube. Okay, so in this question we have time period, we have to find T1 by T2. So T1 square will be proportional to r cube, T2 square will be proportional to 4r the whole cube, isn't it? 4r the whole cube. So T1 by T2 the whole square will be equal to r cube divided by 4 into 4 into 4. So that is 64 r cube. So T1 by T2, the whole square is equal to 1 by 64. But here we have to find T1 by T2, not the square. So T1 by T2 is equal to 1 by 8. Root of 1, that is 1. Root of 64, that is 8. So the answer is 1 by 8. Okay, so by heart this square of the time period is proportional to the cube of the radius or cube of the semi-major axis, because this is elliptical orbit. Okay. Next question. A metallic wire having resistance of 20 ohm is cut into 2 equal parts. A metallic wire having resistance of 20 ohm is cut into 2 equal parts in length. These parts are then connected in parallel. Resistance of this parallel combination is equal to. Okay, so we have a metallic wire which is having 20 ohm and it is cut into 2 equal parts. 2 equal parts. So if it is cut into 2 equal parts, we know that R is proportional to L. So if L becomes half, R also will become half, isn't it? So each part will be 10 ohm and 10 ohm each. These parts are connected in parallel. So 10, 10 connected in parallel. Okay, so if 2 equal resistors are connected in parallel, what will be the total resistance? That will be R by 2. So the answer is 10 by 2, that is 5 ohm. This 5 ohm. Understood. If we are connecting n resistors in parallel, n equal resistors in parallel. So suppose R. So if it is 4 equal resistance, total resistance will be R by 4. In the case of parallel connection. So here 2 equal resistors, 10 and 10 connected. So it will be 10 by 2, 5 ohm. So the answer is option C, 5 ohm. See the next question. The part of the human eye on which the image is formed. So in the last class, we have already discussed in the other part of this question paper, we have discussed the part of the eye, human eye on which image is formed. So the image is formed on the retina. Image is formed on the retina, which is a screen of the human eye. This is human eye. Here we can see retina, which consists of rods and cones that we have discussed in detail in the when we discuss the beginning part of this question paper, retina. And this retina is having rods and cones which are light sensitive. Okay, so this is retina. Answer is option C, retina. Then what was pupil? Pupil was the small opening through which the light enters our eye. Cornea, what was cornea? Cornea is the lining through which the light, it is a thin layer surrounding the eyes, and that will also enable the light to enter. It is a transparent layer. Iris is the muscle or a muscular tissue that controls the size of the pupil. So here the answer is option C, retina. Next question. Consider the following image. Proton is moving like this. Magnetic field also there. A proton enters a magnetic field at right angles to it as shown above. The direction of the force acting on the proton will be. Okay, so magnetic field is going like this, proton is going perpendicular. A proton enters the magnetic field at right angle. So magnetic field like this, proton enters at right angles to it. You have to find the force. Okay, you have to find the force. Just try. Which law shows the direction of current, magnetic field, and the force? That is Fleming's left-hand rule, isn't it? Fleming's left-hand rule. Fleming's left-hand rule. Okay, so according to Fleming's left-hand rule, stretch your thumb such that thumb, forefinger, and your central finger or middle finger is perpendicular to each other. Then, so you have to stretch 3 as perpendicular. If your thumb, forefinger, and middle finger. Then your forefinger shows the magnetic field. Then current is the middle finger. Current, middle finger. Then force will be given by the thumb. Force will be given by the thumb. So a proton that enters the magnetic field will be experiencing a force, isn't it? Will be experiencing a force, and that is in the direction of thumb. So see, magnetic field is shown with the help of your forefinger, and the current is entering perpendicular in the upward direction, isn't it? Perpendicular in the upward direction. Then if you keep the fingers, here you will be having magnetic field. Then current like this, magnetic field, current. Then the thumb will be pointing into your page. Thumb will be pointing into the page. Okay, so that will give the force. So it will be towards the page, into the page. Okay, so the answer is option D, into the page. Let's see the next question. Which one of the following statements about the sound is not correct? Sound travels at lower speed than that of light. Sound waves are transverse waves. Sound waves are longitudinal waves. Sound waves travels faster in moist air than in dry air. So the correct answer, what is the correct answer? That means a not correct statement you have to. So you see the statements. First one is sound travels at a speed slower than the speed of light. That is correct because speed of the sound is lower than light. Light is having speed 3 into 10 raised to 8 is the speed of the light, isn't it? Speed of light, speed of the light that in air, it is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. But what is the speed of sound in air? Speed of sound in air. Speed of sound in air. That is not that much as that of light. It is only 343 meter per second under normal conditions. So that statement is correct. Sound is lower than light, obvious. Now, sound waves are transverse waves. That is wrong. This is correct statement. Sound waves are actually longitudinal waves, not transverse waves. Now, sound travels in moist air faster than in air. That is sure because sound requires a medium to travel. So if the particles are there in the medium, that will be traveling very faster. So moist air will have water droplets, isn't it? So that in the moist air speed will be more. So that is also correct. So the wrong statement is option B. So thank you everyone. We'll see you with another question paper in the next class. Thank you for watching Genius channel.